Let's welcome in Jonathan Macri of the Knicks Film School to discuss this win that had Knicks fans scratching their heads. Jonathan, the Knicks outscored the Sixers 30-13 in the third, but somehow still managed to fall apart in the fourth. Why do you think this game came down to the wire?
Yeah, I mean, free throws, definitely. Anybody watching this game was pulling their hair out down the stretch at those missed freebies. But two guys that I think I have to call out here are Karl-Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges. Karl-Anthony Towns played about 3 minutes in the second half of this game because he picked up 3 fouls. I know he was dealing with a bad back, but the Knicks need more from their highest paid player, especially in a game of this magnitude. And then Mikal Bridges, you know, the Knicks had a 17-point fourth quarter lead at one point that disappeared to 7 points in the blink of an eye. Mikal Bridges took 6 shots in that span of time. He made as many as you and me. So Mikal Bridges, obviously the Knicks gave up a lot to get him a year and a half ago. I think fans, you know, feel the frustration of him not giving enough production considering what they gave up to get him.
Yeah, you mentioned those missed free throws. That was a big part of why the Sixers were able to get back into this game. How big of a concern were those missed free throws for you? And do you think this could be a problem going forward?
You know, this is a team that employs the clutch player of the year in Jalen Brunson. But despite that, I think you have to look at this as a big issue. There are 30 teams in the NBA. Not a one of them has a worse clutch free throw percentage this season than the New York Knicks. And I know we don't think of the Knicks as a team that folds down the stretch of games, but this is unfortunately part of their DNA. You know, we saw it in game 1 against the Indiana Pacers in last year's conference finals. And even Jalen Brunson, for all that he does that is good down the stretch of close games, had 2 big misses late here that could have made this a much more interesting ball game. So they definitely have to clean this up moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Cat. He ended up fouling out of the game with just over 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. How big was Mitchell Robinson, especially in the third quarter, with Cat on the bench there?
You can't say enough about Mitchell Robinson, the longest tenured Knick and a guy that I hope plays the rest of his career in a Knick uniform. Look, I know Mitchell Robinson frustrates some fans with the fact that he has to sit out back-to-backs, you know, constantly dealing with injuries and nicks and different things of that nature. But without this guy on the floor, they are not not the same team on the defensive end. In this game in particular, they had a 140 defensive rating. That's atrocious when he was off the floor. When he was on the court, a 92 defensive rating. You saw his impact in a big way, both on the defensive end, limiting Joel Embiid in the second half, and on the offensive boards where he forces teams to pay attention to him, box him out. So if he's not getting the offensive rebound, oftentimes one of his teammates is instead.
And Cat's been getting a lot of heat lately about the way he's been playing. What do you chalk that up to, and how would you rate his performance in this game?
It's not good enough, and I would chalk it up to simply we're talking about a guy that, you know, he's been in Mike Brown's offense now for more than half the season, still not comfortable. We're still having conversations about how do we work Cat in. Look, when you make $53 million, sometimes you have to find ways to work yourself into the offense and get yourself going. It should not fall on Karl-Anthony Towns' teammates to be responsible for his positive play. He needs to do a little bit more on his own.
All right, let's continue this conversation with some Knickerbocker banter. Ty Butler joins us now. Ty, the Knicks at one point had a 17-point lead. They almost blew it, but they've now won back-to-back games. So does this win give you any confidence?
All right, I've got to be honest. I know people aren't going to love this. They're gonna despise it. But this game, even in a win, actually makes me feel worse about the Knicks' title chances.
Okay.
And look, I give them credit because of the stakes. If you consider, you know, January having stakes, they had come into this game losing 9 of 12 games. They're on the road in Philly against the Sixers team that had beaten them twice, so they get the win. But we got to take a look at the biggest moment of the game, and that happened in the third quarter once Cat goes to the bench, and we can show you the numbers. The Knicks outscore them 25-9, and you see their offense is clicking. They hit 11 of 21, but more impressive to me was their defense. They held the Sixers to 20% from the field. The Knicks defense the last 2 months has been an absolute disaster. So the biggest stretch of the game, and what was a significant one for the Knicks, saw a Cat on the bench, and somehow this team that aspires to win a championship looked as good as they have in the last couple of weeks with their second best player on the bench. And so I was alarmed. That was concerning for me. And I just wonder if you are going to get this inconsistent play from Cat, what is your ceiling?
Yeah.
because the Knicks showed in this game today that on both ends, they just looked a lot better when he was on the bench.
I mean, someone else that really didn't look good in this game was Mikal Bridges. 3 for 16 from the field. What is his best role on the floor for the Knicks right now?
Your best role,
or on the bench?
Your best role is to not have your coach have to pull you with 5 minutes left to go in the game because you can't hit a shot. You mentioned 3 of 16.
Yeah.
He also is someone that you value defensively. When the Knicks, and people get tired of us bringing this up, trade 5 first-round picks for this guy, you're expecting him to be an elite defender. You pair him with OG on that perimeter, you think you have a stout defense, and he's just been getting cooked all year. So the shot was not falling. He's been inconsistent from 3, and I just think the defense has been overrated. We thought we were getting a much better player on that end, and we have not seen that, come to fruition.